of you. A very good afternoon to all of you. I, Dr. Shobna Poddar, Dean from Home Sterling Global University, on behalf of worthy Chancellor of Home Sterling Global University, Dr. Puneet Goyalji, and Co-Chancellor Ma'am, Dr. Poonam Goyalji, our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor N.P. Kaushikji, and our VC Sir, Professor Ajay Poddarji, and all of our eminent speaker. I welcome all of you on behalf of all the dignitaries on this auspicious day of 158th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekanand Ji and National Youth Day for this webinar on new national education policy. On this electronic gathering, I welcome all of you for this particular webinar on new national education policy. So let's go for a virtual tour of our university, Home Sterling Global University, Hisar.
Thank you so much for inviting me for this discussion. This is something which is being discussed all over the country for last almost 6 months after the policy was announced on 29th of July last year. Also, I think you have scheduled this conference on Swami Vivekanand's birthday, who has his own concept of education. And in brief, what I've understood from him that education, if it does not lead to livelihood, is meaningless. And I think the essence of this philosophy of Swamiji had been captured in our national education policy as it was being discussed. Also, I think though the discussions went on for almost 5 years on drafting of the national education policy, from March onwards till the time it was announced, it has also been impacted by the pandemic of COVID. And therefore, I personally believe that the future of education in India will be shaped by 3 factors primarily. And one of the factors is the national education policy, which will be like pulling the entire education system over next 4 to 5 years, as I can see it. And the second factor which will be impacting it is the consequences of COVID pandemic. And I'll not be wrong if I say that COVID consequences will be pushing it. So on one hand, you have National Education Policy 2020, which will be creating the pull, which will give us the policy directions, and the consequences of COVID, which are going to stay for, I think, long enough time, and some of them even forever, will be pushing. And then the disruptive technological advancements which will be taking place for last many years, particularly Industry 4.0, which coexists with the Industry 5.0, will be the enabling factors, whether we want to use it for better or we want to use it for worse. But we cannot ignore it. So these 3 broad factors are the ones which will be driving the sector of education, at least for 4 to 5 years, we can clearly see. If you look at the provisions of National Education Policy 2020, while one could put them into many provisions or many policy directives, have broadly categorized them into 9 broad kind of policy initiatives. Maybe I have clubbed them because I found them similar or interrelated. So these broad 9 kind of directions given by a national education policy, which the committee which was under the chairmanship of Dr. Kasturi Rangan. The first one is multidisciplinary and large higher education institutions will be existing in future, and they are proposing 3 different types of institutions. One which are large research universities, and what it say that all those universities which are large in terms of student strength, about 20,000 plus, will be research universities and have to undertake 60 to 70% of research emphasis. The second tier, tier 2 as they call it, will be teaching universities, and the size will be somewhere around 5,000 to 20,000, but they will also undertake research to the extent of 30-40%, but essentially they'll be teaching university. And third tier will be autonomous colleges, which will have the power to award degrees. Now that may take about 10 to 12 years before we go to that, because prerequisite will be that these institutions should be necessarily accredited. Now, if you look at these three types, what will happen? There are in India hard separations between regular university education on one hand, vocational education on the other hand. Then now in between we have skill development kind of initiatives undertaken by the government. We have specialized universities in terms of discipline. We have specialized universities in terms of men and women. Different types of categories of universities exist in India, which make it very, very complex. But in the process, what we have done, a highly specialized university moves away from multidisciplinarity. By definition, multidisciplinarity means that we should have more than one disciplines being taught in the university system, which brings in that interaction, that information between more than 2 or 3 or 4 disciplines. And universities, by definition, are diverse. And therefore, multiple disciplines have to be there. As you must have read in the policy document, that 2030 onwards, no single discipline. However, this will be indicated right from 2024 onwards. You must be aware that in my neighborhood, I'm Bangalore. They already decided to start a 4-year humanities degree next year onwards. So there's a reaction which is seen immediately from the elite institutions like IIMs, which have been essentially in single discipline. So the affiliated college concept will phase out. There won't be any affiliated colleges, because good colleges either will become university themselves or merge with the universities, or come together, act as a diversified campus, or become autonomous degree awarding colleges. So there won't be any hard separations. Maximum number of institutions which are single discipline, as you would know, if you look at the AISHE data of 2 years ago, they are B.Ed college or educational training institutions. And that is a reason, according to me, which has led to deterioration of school education and the quality, because they are the teachers who teach there. No interaction with the degree college at all. The second major provision is the flexibility or outcome-based education. But the most disruptive under this section, according to me, will be, when I talk about flexibility, is the academic bank of credits. Friends, please note that this academic bank of credit is the most disruptive provision which this policy talks about. Now, this means that students can earn credits from anywhere. They can earn from industry, they can earn from training institutions, they can earn from different universities, which will facilitate it by multiple exits. Maybe a student studies with you for 6 months, he exits, works in the industry, comes back, earns some credits, and he keeps depositing these credits into academic bank of credit.
Good afternoon, our eminent speakers, Dr. Raj Singh ji, B.B. Goyal ji, Amit Dashora ji, and Abhay Kanikar ji, and our Pro Vice Chancellor, Dr. Ajay Poddar ji, Dr. Shobna ma'am. Sir, it was very encouraging that you have discussed the new education policy in very elaborate manner, and you have described all the policies which have been covered under these 9 pillars. So really it is, we are fortunate that this policy has been introduced since after 34 years. And in real terms now, this policy has taken into consideration that I think overall development of persons should take place, and which includes physical, mental and emotional developments. And I think this policy also focus on overall development of the personalities, which allows to excel in behavior, thoughts and conduct. And I think this policy also includes that how the values, these can be moral values, constitutional values and many other kind of values can be included in the life of one. So an overall development of a person can take place. Similarly, the policy also focus on development of a personality which is full of knowledge and responsible for the society, and also this envisages to build the capacity to make use of new technologies for upliftment of the education and inspire for continuous research which may be useful for our commerce and industries, and also that may be useful for infrastructure development. And the major points of this policy which has announced, the changes you have already discussed, but this policy also include the recognizing and identifying the capacities of each and individual. It is taking care right from the children from 3 years to the student up to PhD. So all provisions have been made in this policy that everybody is taken care. And one of the some of the important provisions which have been made in this policy that now there will be a good flexibility in learning. A science student can go in the even music stream also if he is want to excel in that area, or if someone wants to excel in sports. So right from childhood age, this will be a facility that they can excel in their areas, along with the domain knowledge also. And one of the important factor which has been brought in, that is
thank you, Dr. Shobna, and thank you very much, Kaushik sir, our Vice Chancellor, our Honorable Vice Chancellor. We heard from Dr. Raj Singh also. Dr. Raj Singh has made such a very good presentation on certain points that research and the online content was actually very, very good, elaborately been done by the Dr. Raj Singh ji. As Dr. Shobna has said that our university is actually in Hisar, Haryana, and we are also is a part of this education policy. But this year, actually, down the line, we shall remember how the world has been changed and the life has been came into the standstill. We have witnessed major unprecedented events in this year that has led to changes on part of the technology, and education is also not have been aloof with this kind of the new environment which is actually now emerging. However, so many bad things have been happened in the 2020, but one good thing has been happened that the 36 years old education system of India has been got overhauling, and we have got the new education policy 2020. As Dr. Raj Singh and our Vice Chancellor Dr. Kaushik sir has elaborately done that how this education policy is covering a lot of details. The new education policy has been introduced at the right time, I believe, to complement the process and vision of creating quality institution. It is a cultural innovation and a highly skilled workforce. It was about time that we initiated a process to transform the education. So I was making a point that the new education policy has came into the right time when the technology is getting a leap, and education is also not aloof by that. I will not take much time as we have a very eminent luminaries for this roundtable conference. Dr. Amit Dasora is also there, and I believe that when his organization Bharatiya Shikshan Sansthan was actually preparing the draft of the new education policy, I was also being included as a part to give my inputs. So we will be listening Dr. Dasora also, Dr. Rajkumar ji also there, and Goel Sahib is also joined us. So most welcome from the university side to all luminaries. And over to you, Dr. Sobna. We may now listen. Let us have the listen from the luminaries of the other universities. Thank you very much, everybody, and most welcome to the university.
Thanks a lot for your inputs about this the topic, new national education policy. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Rajkumar ji. He's a director and dean from the IMSA from MDU University Rohtak, and he's the Dean of Students Welfare as well. He is Dean and Director, Faculty of Management Sciences, as well as Director, Career Counseling and Placements. And he's a Chairman of Investment Committee, Member Executive Council, Member of Academia Council, Member of UG Board of Studies, Coordinator of Nodal Center Higher Studies, Life Members of Indian Commerce Association, Life Member of Indian Management Association, Secretary, IMSAR Alumni Association, and he's a Chancellor nominee in the Finance Committee of Chaudhry Devilal University, Sirsa as well. And she's handling Entrepreneur Cell in MDU Rohtak University, organized 7 days National Youth Festival, received Excellence Award for the same, successfully conducted Student Union elections in MD University as well, and organized so many conferences on the particular budget. So I welcome Dr. Raj Singh ji, Professor Raj Singh. Professor Rajkumar ji, over to Professor Rajkumar.
My introduction, and first of all, I'm thankful to the OMS Conning University for giving me an opportunity to share my views on new education policy. All the dignitaries associated on this occasion, and the speaker before me has highlighted some of the points of the national education policy. Now, this particular policy has suggested a major shift from our earlier education policy to the new one which we are going to follow in that time to come. And the focus of this education policy is to make India as a global knowledge superpower. As all of you know, that the present situation of our Indian university at the global level, that our name is not appearing, but finding a place in that list is the biggest challenge to all of us who are the stakeholders in the space of higher education. If you see the employability aspect of the present education policy, all of us are very well versed with how much employable students we produce at our engineering institute level, at our management institute level, or even the degree colleges which are offering courses to the students. So, the same is with the quality of research which is being offered. So, transformation, no doubt transformation in higher education is required. And if that transformation, what I feel that the particular transformation which is suggested in this new education policy, that also match with the technological changes which are happening in the industry. As the Vice Chancellor has rightly said, that today we will find an opportunity, a student of a BA, he is also taking in a science subject. So this kind of the transformation at the college level, when it will happen, so we will produce a new kind of human capital which will feed the requirement of the industry. Secondly, what I personally believe that The biggest challenge for our higher education system is that is most of us many of times we are very much concerned about this gross enrollment ratios and the target from 26.3% to the 50%. How this target will be achieved and what kind of a partnership will be required, that what kind of the synergy needs to be built when we are talking about so far as the improvement in this gross enrollment ratio is concerned. Maybe our regulators, maybe our governments, maybe the public and other private institution of higher learning, how and what kind of the synergy that needs to be developed. Again, this is a very burning issue so far as this particular new higher education policy is concerned. What I more feel like that, one of the another beauty of this new education policy is strengthening the research area. So if the research-based education, research-based teaching is promoted in the institutions of the higher learning, so we will be able to produce a quality human capital, and that quality human capital which we need for our Atmanirbhar Bharat also. So these kind of the requirements, I think they will be possible after implementation of this particular policy. Another very good achievement, another very good the provision which is made in the new education policies, that is the academic bank of the credit. Suppose earlier suppose you are affiliated with a university, or you are a student of a particular institution or a university, so accordingly a degree is offered to you. Now you can accumulate your credit. A bank is there. If I want to take a student want to take any credit from a good institution. So accordingly, this kind of the flexibility, the first time that this kind of the flexibility is being perceived, and so a real sense, a choice-based credit system. I'm offering one credit from another institution, one credit from another institution. So this kind of the arrangement that will bring an overall development of the students, which they can take and utilize them, expertise which is available across the global or you can say across the nation. So another very good point which I feel that the transforming assessment system. So far as the assessment system is concerned, I am very much concerned. If you look at the assessment system presently, our all affiliating universities or our all colleges which are following, so that particular assessment system doesn't build high order skills. Now, if in the present scenario, we need a human capital which is more analysis oriented, which is more critical thinking oriented, which has a more clarity with regard to concept. So simple, you can say a summative, a descriptive type of evaluation system to that kind of evaluation system which take into consider the competency-based promotions when they will be promoted. So I definitely feel so the evaluation system of the assessment system that would be very much better. So these are some of the points which I have highlighted so far as this new education policy is concerned. So this is now from my side. This is over, and I to the Somnath. Professor Raj Singh ji, can I ask one question? You was in Jaipur Stock Exchange?
I was in Jaipur, Amity during 2009 to 12 period.
So I welcome Professor Amit Dashora sir. Over to Dashora sir. Thank you.
और स्पेशली ओम स्टर्लिंग यूनिवर्सिटी को बधाई देता हूं कि शिक्षा नीति पर चर्चा के लिए देश भर से इतने अच्छे विद्वत जनों को अपने समाज को लाभान्वित करने के लिए एक मंच पे लाने का प्रयास किया है। मैं प्रोफेसर राज सिंह जी, प्रोफेसर राजकुमार जी, प्रोफेसर अजय पोद्दार जी, आप सभी को इस आयोजन के लिए हार्दिक बधाई देता हूं। शिक्षा नीति का जहां तक प्रश्न है, शिक्षा नीति पर कार्य करने के लिए भारतीय शिक्षण मंडल का निर्माण 1969 में हुआ था और शिक्षा नीति का विषय जो है मेरे हृदय से जुड़ा हुआ विषय है, क्योंकि पिछले 7-8 वर्षों से इस आंदोलन से जुड़ा हुआ रहा। 2012 से शिक्षण मंडल में एक सक्रिय कार्यकर्ता के रूप में कार्य कर रहा हूं और शिक्षा नीति को लेकर ही कई सुझावों के लिए, कई फीडबैक्स लेने के लिए हमारा संगठन कई वर्षों से लगा हुआ है। तो यह विषय जो है ये हृदय से लगा हुआ विषय है और हृदय से लगा हुआ विषय होने के कारण जो मेरी भाषा है, जो हृदय की भाषा है, वो हिंदी है और इसीलिए हृदय से लगे हुए विषय को हृदय की भाषा में ही प्रस्तुत करने का प्रयास करूंगा। शिक्षा नीति एक ऐसा विषय है जो हमारे राष्ट्र की कई आकांक्षाओं से जुड़ा हुआ है। एक मिनट माफ करिएगा, थोड़ी सी टेक्निकल दिक्कत है। हमारे राष्ट्र की कई आकांक्षाओं से जुड़ा हुआ है और अगर हम शिक्षा नीति की प्रस्तावना को ठीक से पढ़ें तो पृष्ठ 4 पर जो पैराग्राफ लिखा गया है वो कहता है, प्राचीन और सनातन भारतीय ज्ञान और विचार की समृद्ध परंपरा के आलोक में यह नीति तैयार की गई है। ज्ञान, प्रज्ञा और सत्य की खोज को भारतीय विचार परंपरा और दर्शन में सदा सर्वोच्च मानवीय लक्ष्य माना जाता था। प्राचीन भारत में शिक्षा का लक्ष्य सांसारिक जीवन अथवा स्कूल के बाद जीवन की तैयारी के रूप में ज्ञान अर्जन नहीं, बल्कि पूर्ण आत्मज्ञान और मुक्ति के रूप में माना गया है। तक्षशिला, नालंदा, विक्रमशिला, वल्लभी जैसे प्राचीन भारत के विश्व स्तरीय संस्थानों के अध्ययन के विविध विषय क्षेत्रों में शिक्षण और शोध के ऊंचे प्रतिमान स्थापित किए थे और विभिन्न पृष्ठभूमि और देशों से आने वाले विद्यार्थियों और विद्वानों को लाभान्वित किया था। इस शिक्षा व्यवस्था ने चरक, सुश्रुत, आर्यभट्ट, वराहमिहिर, भास्कराचार्य, ब्रह्मगुप्त, चाणक्य, चक्रपाणी, दत्ता, माधव, पाणिनि, पतंजलि, नागार्जुन, गौतम, पिंगला, शंकरदेव, मैत्रेयी, गार्गी और तिरुवल्लुवर जैसे अनेक महान विद्वानों को जन्म दिया। तो शिक्षा नीति का जो लक्ष्य है वो स्पष्ट है। शिक्षा नीति आत्मनिर्भर भारत की बात करती है। शिक्षा नीति एक ऐसे समृद्ध भारत के लक्ष्य को लेकर कार्य करना चाहती है जिससे भारत अपने पुराने गौरव को फिर से स्थापित कर सके। शिक्षा नीति ऐसा नहीं है कि भारत में शिक्षा नहीं है, भारत में बहुत विश्वविद्यालय खोले गए, लेकिन एक दृष्टि जो शिक्षा को लेकर होनी चाहिए उस दृष्टि का सदा से अभाव रहा। हम सभी शिक्षा के क्षेत्र से किसी न किसी रूप में जुड़े हुए रहे हैं और शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में वास्तविकता क्या होती है और जो हो रहा है उसके परिणाम क्या आ रहे हैं, उन सभी से हम अपने हृदय से उन चीजों को हम जानते हैं। नीति ऐसी होनी चाहिए जो पूरे राष्ट्र का एक मार्गदर्शन कर सके और उसी दृष्टि से शिक्षा नीति ने बहुत से अच्छे अच्छे प्रोविजन किए हैं और उन प्रोविजनों में जो सबसे जो महत्वपूर्ण ध्यान रखा गया है वो आत्मनिर्भर भारत का ध्यान रखा गया है। आत्मनिर्भर केवल मात्र एक कल्पना नहीं है, आत्मनिर्भर भारत की वास्तविक जीवन पद्धति है और हम इस देश के संबल को बहुत आसानी से समझ सकते हैं, बहुत आसानी से देख सकते हैं, सोच सकते हैं, विचार सकते हैं कि जहां संपूर्ण विश्व में कोविड को लेकर इतनी परेशानियां चल रही है, हमारे यहां पे भी एक लंबा समय लॉकडाउन में बीता, उस समय भी यह देश ऐसा साहस कर रहा है कि वो आत्मनिर्भर भारत की तरफ आगे बढ़ सके। 2 कार्य हुए हैं आत्मनिर्भर भारत को ध्यान में रखते हुए। इस कोविड के काल में पूरी दुनिया तो कोविड को याद रखेगी एक विभीषिका के रूप में, 2020 को याद रखेगी विभीषिका के रूप में, लेकिन हमारा भारत 2 कारणों से 2020 को याद रखेगा। पहला कारण शिक्षा नीति 2020 में आई है, और दूसरा कारण जो बेल आउट पैकेज के नाम पर 20 लाख करोड़ रुपए देश को आत्मनिर्भर बनाने के लिए घोषणा की गई। उससे जो विकास होने वाला है, उससे जो देश में एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप का माहौल बदलने वाला है, वो एक बहुत बड़ा कदम है। उसी के साथ साथ हम राम मंदिर के फैसले के लिए भी इस 2020 को याद रखने वाले हैं। तो 2020 भारत के लिए, भारत की संस्कृति के पुनरुत्थान के लिए, भारत के स्वाभिमान के लिए एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण वर्ष बनकर हम सभी के सामने रहेगा। इतिहास इस वर्ष को बहुत ही सकारात्मक रूप से याद रखेगा। आर्थिक संकट के कारण सारी आर्थिक गतिविधियां ठप हुई और सारा विश्व विचित्र आर्थिक मंदी का शिकार हो गया। और ऐसे समय में जो बेल आउट की घोषणा हुई और उस समय उससे जो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के लिए जिस तरह से माहौल बनेगा, वो बहुत अच्छा होगा। लेकिन उस एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के लिए क्या हमारे पास युवा हैं? अगर हम नेस्कॉम का डेटा देखें या बहुत सी एजेंसीज हैं जो एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी स्किल्स पे डेटा कलेक्ट करती हैं, कितना एम्प्लॉयबल है, तो वो जो परसेंटेज देती है वो 7% to 15% के बीच में सिमट जाता है। उस स्थिति में जहां केवल जॉब के लिए, केवल एम्प्लॉयबल होने के लिए स्किल्स की कमी दिख रही हो।
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shobna, and various speakers who are on the dais, and the ones who have shared their views, and maybe because of some busy schedule they would have left, but I'm very much happy to share my views with you on the new education policy, which is shortly to be come up and implemented in the country. Actually, all the various speakers, as much as have heard, because I joined a little late, and mine is a little a critical evaluation of the new education policy. Though everyone is speaking in the pros of the new education policy, and if we do anything from the open mind and we critically analyze, only then I think the things get fruitful. The very first thing, if we are to implement the new education policy, then there is a circular by the, mine is a interstate body corporate, 90-80%, 88% funded by university, by central government. We got a circular in the end of 14 by the new government, the then government, that even a daily wage employee of the university cannot be employed by the university without permission of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and that is continuing till today. So every month approximately we are having about 3,000 teachers and 12,000 teachers, so 1,200 teachers and about 3,500 non-teaching employees. Now every month about 7-8 teachers and about 100 or maybe 50 non-teaching employees retire, and there is no replacement. Yesterday only happened was one person looking after 7 activities, and number of times because of the university administration committees, syndicate written to MHRD, right? And they are saying no, there is a financial crunch. You cannot employ even a single person without the permission of Ministry of HRD. And when we can, and because of the this pandemic, in the month of July, I joined as chairperson on 30th of June, and 1st of July, 200 employees were retrenched by the university whose services were not yet confirmed. So, meaning thereby, this is one aspect that there will be so many obstacles, there will be so many difficulties, so many impediments in the implementation of the new education policy. Though on the floor of it, it appears to be very effective. And if it is implemented wholeheartedly, then we need to make so many changes, so many liberalizations, so many authorities, so many expenditures, so many laboratories, or maybe open schools, closed schools, whatever type of schools, will have to, but we cannot get the best by input of the minimum. So the more we will put into, the more input will be there, more output can be there. If we really want to reap the fruits of the new education policy, though of course it was long pending. We had a first education policy in 1968, I think, then 86, and 14 plus 30, 34 years. When I was in US, Madam was saying in 2009, there was one state university, I remember, Coppin State University, and the dean of the business school there, he took me there. I had interaction with the faculty member there, and then I saw their prospect. I was at the time, it was 2009, about 11 years back. I was really not knowing all this, that this could be the course curriculum of a management school or business school. There was maybe 70-80 subjects that they were offering, and we were offering about 20-25. I asked the dean, how is this that you are teaching music in management? You are teaching some very odd subjects. Then he said, actually depends upon the level of importance to the management that we have given credit hours. Subjects were divided into 4 categories, 1, 2, 3, and 4 credit hours. To graduate with management subjects, one needs 40 credit hours to be completed. Now it is up to one can take 40 subjects, one can take 10 subjects in 2 years course curriculum. The more the difficult or the in-depth subjects one takes, more creditors are there. So but here, what is that same subject everyone has to study? Basically, now this policy is you can say, direction toward that very policy. And at that time, really, I didn't know that this could also be, but I had happened to hear Professor Yashpal at Punjab University itself, again about 7-8 years back. And when he was delivering his speech, he talked about, cannot we teach history with physics and chemistry? At that time also, many of us were not really thinking of inclination toward this, that this could be possible. But Professor Yashpal, you know, he was the chairman of the UGC Commission also. And he said that, what if I can read some subjects in mother language, some subject in mother tongue, some subjects in English. But here, when we only 6th of this month, we were interviewing some students for PhD admission. Most of my colleagues, whenever a student starts discussing or saying about what he or she has done, this used to start asking him, speak English only, our medium of instruction is English only, something like this. But it was really, you can say, having a burden on me, being the senior most faculty present there, that why you are asking a person not to use one mother language. There are so many words. There are so many words which I cannot appropriately express unless and until I use local language. And the meaning of so many words in the foreign language, English is the foreign language, or other language is the same. Suppose I have to say chacha, uncle. Uncle is the word for everything. So now I want to say what kind of relative he is, but uncle will be common for this. Then again, so many things are there. But anyhow, coming back to the new education policy, and you know that education is the fundamental building block of the economic and all other development. I emphasize all other types of development of a country. Again, I will have to be a little critical. When we say, and there is no denying the fact that education is the fundamental building block. When it is fundamental building block, then why my contribution of the GDP in the budget for the education sector is being drastically reduced every plan and every budget and budget and budget. We all belong to the education sector. I know, being chairperson of a department, 5,000 teaching positions in the universities, public sector, they are lying vacant. How we will be able to implement this policy when unless and until these 5,000, what to talk of creating new positions? I am doing with 24 faculty members where my sanction strength is 46, approximately with 50%. Then how we can go in for change in the curriculum? How we can go in for the expansion? How we can go in for the interdisciplinary programs? Because if we have to emphasis of the new education policy, the interdisciplinary approach. But interdisciplinary approach can be two ways. One could be we dismantle the existing system, and we have a school system wherein all the faculty should be merged. Then we can have a common curriculum, as partly this policy also envisages. But if we say that we have to reach the most effective, best manner in the human product as a human resource.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shobana Madam. Really, after listening to all these luminaries of education, there is hardly anything which I can add by way of value. At the onset, I am very much grateful to the OMS Global University for providing me an opportunity. And fortunately, all the aspects pertaining to education policy have very nicely elaborated by all the eminent speakers. Dr. Raj Singh, Dr. Kaushik sir, Dr. Ajay Poddar, Rajkumar, Dr. Amit Datta, and Dr. B.B. Goel sir. They have elaborated and contemplated all. In fact, the last session wherein certain challenges with respect to the implementation of policy were raised are aptly answered by the competent speakers. Now, without wasting much of time, because all the very nicely Dr. Raj Singh sir has elaborated the pillars of new education policy. Now, I would like to make use of all the particular points which were put forth, but my presentation would more towards the innovation and the entrepreneurship. So the theme is let us say somewhere let us have some common thread in the theme. So inadvertently, without me having all the words and all the references, right from Nanda, Takshashila, everything has been very aptly narrated by all the very illustrious resource persons. So I'll make use of the presentation. I'll just serve to the presentation and I'll explain certain entrepreneurial traits. I am from Pune, and Pune is considered as the seat of education. We are called as, now it is no longer the case because entire pan India has become seat of education, but we are called as Oxford of East. Okay, so I'll just make use of my presentation so that I don't make any, rather I don't make any part of my slide, and